All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have our first regular season recap for the Chicago Bulls. They got the job done tonight against the Detroit Pistons. It was a pretty ugly game. I will not lie to you. I was live the whole time. If you guys were there, thanks for tuning in. I will probably be live for most Bulls games. If you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. Simple as that. Really helps out the algorithm. All my links are in the bio if that interests you. Let's get into some statistics. I've got my laptop here and we're going to go through it player by player. So just real quick, like shooting the ball wise, like this game for the Bulls, this isn't how the regular season's going to go. Like they were pretty sloppy to start it off and then they just weren't making their shots. Now, the good news is for the entirety of the game, the defense was extremely solid. So that is the good news. Like they gave up 88 points. And I know Detroit didn't have Cade Cunningham, and I know it's the Detroit Pistons, but at the same time, they're an NBA team. They have capable players. They have all-star players. Like they have they've got a roster. They've got a good roster. And a win is a win. At the end of the day, a win is a win. So they definitely got better as the quarters went on. But altogether, just like in general, it wasn't really a particularly good game. They only shot 43% from the field, 30% from deep. A little sloppy with the turnovers, but player by player wise, you'll look at it. I mean, we got Zach LaVine, 34 points tonight, 11 of 17 from the field. But here's what'll really get you, right? So Zach LaVine had 34 points and he had 7 rebounds and he had 4 assists, but how many threes did he have? Because he had 34 points. He had one three and still dropped 34 points. So with Zach LaVine, this is a over 40% three-point shooter last season, and the hype is there. So let's say Zach LaVine let's say he went 3 of 5 from deep. 40 points for him tonight. So Zach LaVine's just like the whole Bulls team. They only scored 14 points in the first quarter. It started off really slow, and he was one of the players who was starting off a little bit on the slower end. Maybe not as sloppy as some of the other guys, but definitely started off a little bit slow. Once the second half hit, he started to get it going on offense, and there was no holding him back. He had a couple and ones. He had some nice just like contested mid-range shots. I mean, Zach LaVine, the entire game, outside of the first quarter, so not the entire game, every quarter outside of the first quarter looked phenomenal. Like he looked like a legitimate all-star, all-NBA, like superstar in the league. 34 points in the first game of the season, no matter who it's against. To me, that is a huge success. Now, the guy on the Bulls who had the second best game, I'm going to go with Nikola Vucevic. There was some sloppy moments on the defensive end. I feel like offensively he was able to hold his own. He finished with 15 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but I think for the most part, Nikola Vucevic was extremely useful. Obviously, crashing the boards, but there were a lot of different times, whether it was a pick and roll or a pick and fade, it seemed like Detroit was never really able to figure out if Nikola was going to fade or roll. And as the game went on, he started to really kind of fade, leave the lane open for LaVine or Lonzo, whoever it was, initiating the pick and roll. And it seemed like there were like 3 or 4 straight shots that Nikola Vucevic made in the second half that were just like nice mid-range, wide open shots from the pick and roll. So that's what you like to see. He was frustrated at times. I mean, he only made 1 of 4 from deep, but for the first game, Nikola Vucevic, like I said, there were some defensive lapses at times. I don't want to put all the blame on Nikola, but there were definitely a couple of plays for the Pistons that Nikola definitely could have done better. But mainly it was positioning. It wasn't like intensity or it wasn't effort. With Nikola, it won't be any of those things. But it really was just kind of like the positioning. He was just a little bit late. So not really something to take note of, but I think if he didn't start off slow tonight, I mean, honestly, like 20 and 20 is probably in play. Next up, I mean, this one was a little tough because DeMar DeRozan didn't really have a good first half. Maybe he didn't have a bad first half, but in the fourth quarter specifically, he really came up for him. He finished with 17.7 rebounds, 2 assists, but most importantly, he had 3 steals. There were a lot of times in the second half where he would get a steal, and in my live stream, I would be like, what? Like, did you say, like, I'll hear Stacey King talk, I'll be like, DeMar DeRozan did that? Like, what? Are you serious? But there were also a couple times where it was like, oh, that's DeMar DeRozan on defense. Altogether, you'll take what you're given. I think he did a fine job on the defensive end. Definitely an above average job tonight. And those 3 steals, all of them were huge for the Chicago Bulls. So it took him a little bit to get going offensively, but once the second half hit and then once the fourth quarter hit, he really was able to get it going. Lonzo Ball, 12 points, 5 of 12 from the field, 2 of 6 from deep, finished with 6 rebounds, finished with 4 assists. He did have 4 turnovers. The first half, I mean, it's kind of same thing with DeMar DeRozan. The first half was really sloppy for Lonzo Ball. Statistics were still kind of there, but for the most part, he wasn't making his shots. He wasn't making layups. DeMar DeRozan really was not making layups for, honestly, like the whole game. We'll let it be, though. But Lonzo Ball, once the second half hit, same thing with him. There was just something that clicked. Like, it wasn't even just statistical. Like, it's not even that he just statistically did better in the second half. It was like he's putting in way more energy and he's putting in way more effort, and he just looks like a complete point guard in the second half. And so he made a couple of threes that were absolutely huge for them. A couple of shots that were absolutely huge for him. He had a huge 3 in the middle of the fourth quarter that was clutch. Lonzo Ball for his debut in a Chicago Bull uniform in the regular season, I'm going to take it 100%. Lastly, in the starting lineup, you had Patrick Williams. He played 28 minutes. I mean, 2 of 3 from the field, no threes taken. He only finished with 6 points and 1 rebound. The plus-minus was there. He did great defensively. Thank God he is so good defensively, because if he wasn't, he wouldn't be starting. I mean, that's something I've been talking about. I literally made a Bulls video today talking about Patrick Williams needs to be aggressive. Talked about it yesterday, talked about it the day before that. Like, he needs to be more aggressive, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt for today, because just in general, it was a really sloppy, gross game for the Bulls, except like a couple of parts in the second half. But for the most part, it was just a bad, sloppy game. So I won't put too much on Patrick Williams. In the first half, he did have a really nice cut towards the middle of the lane that resulted in an alley-oop from Lonzo Ball. But other than that, and defensively, which is huge, because he was great defensively, just offensively, I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. But first game of the season, I'm not going to hit the panic button. Off the bench, we only had 10 points, so it wasn't really great. Like, Elijah Johnson got a couple of boards, but he was pretty irrelevant. Troy Brown Jr. got 3 fouls within the first 4 minutes that he played. That was it for him. Javonte Green, he only took 1 shot. Same thing with Elijah Johnson. Like, he just didn't really realize he was in it a lot of the time. Dosunmu was huge. He 3 of 8 from the field, but he finished with 7 points. He had a 3, and he had back-to-back layups at the end of the third quarter. That was huge for momentum. The Bulls definitely really got value out of Dosunmu tonight. I know the 7 points, 3 of 8 efficiency, it doesn't seem crazy, but back-to-back layups and then a corner 3 ball, in the moment, it was huge for him. It was absolutely huge, because it really was like a cat and mouse game all game, except for the fourth quarter, where the Bulls pretty much dominated it. And by dominated, I mean just kind of had the lead for the good part of the fourth quarter. Shout out to Dosunmu. With Kobe White being out, the Bulls are relying on him. And then you have Alex Caruso, 3 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, but most importantly, 4 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, this is a guy who every time the ball was passed in his direction, bang, 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 bang. I mean, his hands are everywhere. He's deflecting any pass. in the general direction of his defender. He was phenomenal. Obviously, the points, like, along with everybody not named Zach LaVine, the shots weren't falling for him. And, yeah, the shots just weren't really falling for him. So you have 4 steals and you have 2 blocks, and you're the 6th man. When was the last time we had this? This is the first time the Bulls have been over 500 since 2017. Great day. Hit that like button. That's it for today. Drop your opinion on the Bulls debut down below in the comments, but I will see you guys tomorrow.